We the Mafia. We the Mafia.
We the Mafia, Bills Mafia, Bills Mafia. We the Mafia, we the Mafia, Bills Mafia, Bills Mafia. We the Mafia, Bills Mafia, Bills Mafia.
Alrighty, Bills Mafia, what is cooking this evening? Welcome to the Mafia Cast. I'm your host, Papa Ron, joined by my good friends and fellow hosts, Casey and Mike. What is up, guys?
What is up?
The off season's boring.
Yeah, but I'm glad to be here.
I mean, it's not football games, but all right. There's a lot of stuff to talk about, at least the first early part of the offseason. Once we get into like June, July, yeah, things kind of slow down by that point. But before we move forward, we are brought to you by Spoon Liquor Cakery. Got a big party coming up and need some yummy and delicious cookies or cupcakes? Sarah at Spoon Liquor Cakery is your go-to. Just give her a call at 315-283-6770 and let her know the Mafia Cast sent you and receive a 10% discount on your order. You can also find her on Facebook, Spoon Liquor Cakery, and on Instagram, Spoon_Liquor. We're going to get into
There it is.
a little bit of, the last football game we got to enjoy and be a part of. Well, I don't know if we enjoyed it or not, but the last game that the Bills played. So we'll just jump right into it. Like, I know the offense played bad. We kind of talked about that last week, but this week, what happened to the defense against the Bengals?
Mike,
Were
I'll
we-
go first.
Just too conservative or what, man? Yeah, we kind of just it wasn't spectacular.
No,
Not sure what happened.
definitely not that. No. I've seen
I
a
mean,
lot
Like
of
we just
finger pointing
expected
at-
it to fall into our hands and it didn't. I don't.
Yeah.
But we weren't like we weren't being proactive at all. We were just kind of, I don't know, letting them do what they wanted. I guess.
Yeah, they pretty
We
much
couldn't
did.
stop. Yeah.
On
I-
that broken. Oh God.
I was going to say, and only giving up, 27 points? It felt like 57.
It did. It 100% did. I mean, that broken play, the first touchdown to Jamar Chase. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw it, but there was a shot from over top, and everybody's like, who was Jordan Poyer covering? A ghost? Because they were running a cover 2. It seemed more like a cover 3, and he was the safety that was supposed to drop, but there was miscommunication. He and the other safety, and they both went to cover over top, which left the middle wide open. It just seemed like everybody was off their game. The defensive line, I know we were missing Von Miller, but it seemed like we were all expecting them, and especially themselves included, to be able to walk over basically an entire second string Bengals offensive line. But let's not forget, I mean, we play a rotation on the defensive line. I mean, nobody plays 80, 90% of the snaps. So, it's hard to get in a groove like with that little amount of snaps because you're only going to be playing 3-4 in a row. And B, that means we're going to have a lot of backups ourselves in playing. Guys like Boogie Basham, AJ Epinesa. I mean, I know the rotational guys and they were second-round picks, but they clearly haven't panned out as much as we'd like them to. I mean, Epinesa, I think he's on the rise. I really like AJ. Boogie's kind of disappointing me, but it just seemed like they were ready to walk all over that offensive line. They got punched in the mouth and didn't know what to do.
Yeah. Like you say about Boogie, though, you gotta get him in there and get in a groove, But we were kind of like a step behind, like across the board. Just literally one step behind. We're just off.
I mean, our all-pro linebackers didn't seem like our all-pro linebackers that day. I mean, they seemed confused. They didn't know where the ball was going, who to cover, what area to cover. The whole defense was just in shambles.
Yeah, just like the whole offense was in shambles too.
Yeah.
And there's the light. You can see the light coming on. I forgot to turn the lights on in here, so I had to ask for some help from my wife, and she's up here turning my lights. Thank you, honey.
She's a bright spot in your life.
Yeah, we need some brightness around here. She provides that.
Yeah.
The defense. Okay, so this is the one thing that I kind of wanted to point out. First of all, there's a lot of finger pointing at Frazier, of course. There are a few concerns I have there, but I think we missed Daquan Jones a ton on that defensive front. He's that guy that can occupy space. He can occupy blocks. I saw many times Ed Oliver getting double teamed, and he's not. He's frustrating because for as high as a pick as he was, he needs to be able to take over and at least be that guy on the defensive line, and he's not. And we're year 4 just finished up with him, and he still hasn't, in my opinion, really lived up to that top 10 pick. So I think when Daquan Jones is there to take up those extra blockers, I think that's when Oliver can shine. He can't take on doubles. Single guys, especially backup linemen, I think he can excel at that spot. And I saw that, to me, was the issue with Frazier's defense because of the rotation. When you're already down Daquan Jones, your Jordan Phillips is essentially playing with one arm. Von Miller's out, and you still continue to rotate guys. You're basically rotating at this point second and third string linemen. I hate the rotation thing. Your best 4 need to be on the field 70-75% of the time, in my opinion. I don't like the rotation. I think it needs to stop. It hasn't really worked, honestly. We haven't been – while we're a top 5 defense statistically, it just always seems like we're struggling for some reason on the field. I don't know what that is, why it is, but I kind of did some digging as far as the defense and how they play in the playoffs. And I had the numbers here up in front of me, but I'll kind of go off of memory. In the regular season, over the last 4 years, our defense has given up an average of about 310 yards, which is pretty good. And the 4 playoff losses each of the last 4 years, our defense has given up about 440 yards. That's a huge difference. You're talking almost 2 scores probably with that, right? And I know some of it is the playoff caliber teams, obviously, better competition. I get that part of it. But 130 yards more, that's nuts. That's crazy. Something isn't right. And if you can't stop playoff caliber offenses, then you need to change. Something has to change. And that's my only thing is if Frazier can come back this season, which looks like he's going to, and if they can kind of – and this is the other thing with this defense that I struggle with as far as the staff is they're kind of stubborn. Like they live and die by that nickel. And if you have a front 4 that can get home consistently and get that pressure, it's fine. I have no problem with playing the nickel, but they can't. And when they can't, the defense just crumbles.
I agree with that. I mean, the old adage, defense wins championships. So if the defense is going to play like that in the postseason, how do you expect to win a championship?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not. And that's not even just the playoff losses, but all of the playoff games, period. Even last year in that New England game, we gave up over 300 yards to the Patriots. In a game that felt like we shut them out and they got 0 yards. But
really
even that one, the Patriots still rolled up over 300 yards. So there's something that's happening in the playoffs. And like I said, if our defense in the scheme is not good enough to stop playoff caliber teams on a consistent basis, then something has to change. Whether or not that's a new defensive coordinator, I don't know. I don't get paid to make those kind of decisions. I'm willing to give it one more year to see if they will actually sit down around the table, watch film, and say, you know what? It's time for change. If they do that, I'm totally fine with Frazier staying around. If they don't, and we see more of the same next year, then I'm done. I'm over at that point, I think, and I'm ready to move on. And let's go find somebody else to run our defense.
Yeah, like you said, rotating players around. It's just like a toss-up. It's like, who's your guy at whatever position? Like, you don't know. You're just
yeah, it can definitely create
sort of winging it at that point, and that's like not good for confidence even to begin with, and just
like you said, absolutely,
just having snaps and
for a
have guys
rotation
used to. They talk about being in game shape, you know. You guys playing a lot of snaps.
And I understand a rotation when you are playing second and third string players because you don't know. I mean, players get hot. You have good days, you have on days, and you have off days. So I understand the rotation to where some guys who aren't usually playing. Let's see, are they having an on day? Are they having an off day? And kind of trying to catch lightning in a bottle in a sense. But when you have the guys like Groot and Von Miller and Ed Oliver who can go 3 downs, they should be on the field for, I would say, 65 to 70% of it. They are big guys. They do need to break. Especially those interior guys. Jordan Phillips. Let's see him go 90% of the snaps. That guy'd be winded. And same thing with Daquan Jones. So I understand. Like with the interior guys, they have to get a break. The edge guys is who I'd like to see more. We did see Von Miller had never played less. I think it was less than 80% of snaps in a season, like for a rotation until he came to Buffalo, and he was playing around 70% of the snaps, which was the most anybody had ever played into rotation under McDermott and Frazier. So they were kind of going that direction with Von. So I'm curious to see if with Groot getting better and should be playing better next year, and Von coming back, if they're on the field more often and there's less rotation on the outside and they keep the same rotation on the inside. The inside I don't mind because Jordan Phillips, when he's in there, he's a monster for when he's subbing out for Ed Oliver. But when he's going in there for Daquan Jones, that's not where he thrives. He doesn't thrive at the 1. He's a 3-tech player.
He's a big dude. So is Jones. They're both pretty big guys. Oliver's a little undersized.
That's his problem. His problem is he's barely 300 pounds, and he's like 6'1", 6'2", with short arms.
Yeah, and so when offensive lines can key in on him, and they don't have to worry about a Von Miller or Daquan Jones or Jordan Phillips. In my opinion, I would say Jones, Phillips, and Miller, when everybody's healthy, those are our best 3.
Yeah.
Because, Jordan Phillips is that dude. He goes 120 miles an hour. Like, he's got a motor. Yeah. And we got down to basically Ed Oliver and the offensive line. The Bengals were able to key on him. And I don't care if you got backups on offensive line or not. If you can double team somebody and they can't break it, we're in trouble, in which he couldn't. I think we got 5 total pressures in that game. I think I had saw that number.
And 1 sack.
Yeah, and that 1 sack came from Milano on a blitz. And that was the other thing too. If you can't get the pressure with the front 4, why didn't we blitz more? Like, bring Milano, bring Edmunds, bring a corner off, from the slot. Do something.
Were we too worried that they were going to make a big play on us?
It seemed like they were trying to play the Bengals' own game against them. That's how the Bengals beat Kansas City last year in the championship game, was dropping 8. Mahomes had nowhere to throw the ball. They shouldn't have been throwing the ball. That's an old Bills thing. They were throwing the ball when they didn't need to, and they should have just been running it, and running the clock out. And it seemed like the Bills were kind of trying to do the same thing. Just send 4 and drop 7 and let whatever happen. But you can't give one of, if not the most accurate quarterback in the league with 2 dominant weapons on the outside time like that. That's just not going to work.
Yeah, it works if you can get to them. And that was the thing, like you mentioned last year's AFC Championship game with Cincinnati and KC, is Cincinnati was able to get pressure with those 3 guys. Hubbard, Hendrickson. I had his name. Hendrickson and
BJ.
I don't remember the third one. But those 3 were able to get to him. And we can't do that. We couldn't do it with 4. And I think for me, that was the most frustrating part of watching that game, is seeing that they didn't really do anything different. It's like, and maybe they did, and I just didn't see it, but it didn't feel like they were trying to change anything. Like, it was the same thing over and over and over, and it just was not working. And so here we are. Jordan Poyer. We're going to kind of skip around a little bit here. Is he coming back, guys?
No. Nope.
Okay.
If this is the first time in 6 years, and this is the 3rd time in 6 years he's been up for a contract, but this is the first time that he's actually packed up his house and left, then that means something. I think he's looking for his final one payday because he's been generous with the Bills. He has never taken them to the house, when it came to contracts. He's always been willing, but now he's had a couple Pro Bowls and an All-Pro underneath his belt. He's looking for it. I mean, he deserves it. He 100% deserves it, and I wish that the Bills could be the ones to give it to him, but we can't. It's going to be up to him if he comes back. But if it's money, he's not coming.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate.
Slowly been coming unattached, I guess, and not as worried about seeing him go, and he deserves to get paid too, and try something else, and that definitely opens up a spot that there's a position we need to work on at this point. Probably something we want to start looking forward to.
All the early mock drafts have the Bills taking a Texas A&M safety, Antoine. Excuse me, I can't remember his last. Yeah, I couldn't remember his last name, but another versatile safety. They're saying he can play down in the box, he can play over top. He's got great ball skills.
It's funny you mentioned that.
Big for a safety.
And we'll get more into this as the coming weeks with the draft and free agency and stuff. But I actually did do a quick round one mock with the Bills the other day, a couple days ago. And there were 3 guys that popped up on that. One of them was Antoine Johnson as what possibly being available at that point. And we'll get into that here shortly because we are going to talk about, kind of our offseason wish list, and we're definitely going to start diving into the draft. We got free agency, a lot of good stuff coming up. We've got the Senior Bowl this weekend, and it's kind of a little bit of a segue there, I guess. We will have some guests coming on in the future here in the next few episodes that we'll talk about the Senior Bowl. We'll talk about some of the prospects there. We'll talk about kind of what the Bills might be looking at in those regards with some other people. So excited about that. And while it's on my mind, we do have Kristen Kimmett coming back on this week, a bonus episode on Friday evening, 7:30 Eastern. She will be joining us again to talk about the Bills Mafia Babes February charity. So excited about that as well. With Poyer, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of like, I don't want to say upset with him because I don't know if that's the right word. I get that these guys want to get paid, but at the same time, they're still getting paid quite well, as is. Definitely more than any of us make together, times 10.
Yeah, but there's still a difference between 11 and 22 million.
There's a difference, yes.
And especially where you're playing.
You can still accomplish the same things in life versus 11 or 22 million. And we're
not
not saying that Poyer is in that 22 million range because that's not the case. But I get it. Players, wanting to, chase that bag, especially if it's potentially their last opportunity to do so. I get that.
But you want to chase Super Bowls too.
Yeah. We'll see where he goes. I haven't heard anything as far as other teams that might be interested. Well, I take that back. I have heard.
One team super interested.
Was it the Dolphins, I believe?
Yep.
Yeah.
Dolphins fans are clamoring for him to come down to Miami.
Which, again, would only sour me that much more towards Jordan Poyer.
He'd be dead to me. Dead to me.
This is like, okay, I go back in the 90s. You guys know Thurman Thomas. I know he was playing before your time, but he left Buffalo in his latter part of his career, signed a deal with the Dolphins, played his final, and I was like, are you kidding me?
Hey, you want to go somewhere warm.
Right? He was just practicing for retirement. He knew he wasn't going to have to play in the postseason, so he's like, just quick 16 games. I'm good.
Yeah. I don't know what the contract was at the time. Obviously, it's nothing with what these guys get paid today. But he did one season with the Dolphins, and then he signed a one-day contract back with the Bills and retired the Bills. So he's forgiven.
Yeah, that's one of those things.
So you'd have to forgive Poyer if he did that.
I don't know.
I don't see that happening.
I think the circumstances.
Yeah, Poyer,
Yeah,
he's
there
not
is a
going to just do
difference.
1 year. He's looking at probably a 3 or 4 year deal.
Yeah, right.
I would
And
imagine.
he's still in the prime of his career. You know, the fact that he'd still be good. No, Thurman Thomas wasn't necessarily very like usual Thurman Thomas for the Dolphins.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. I could see him staying or going, but we'll just.
It's all what his priority is. Does he want that? Does he want to finally get his payday, or does he want to stay here, take the team deal, and try to go win the championship with Micah Hyde? Please don't leave.
Yeah. I know, right? Okay, let's talk a little bit about because we've kind of been hinting at it this offseason, the wish list. Do you want obviously you want Poyer back, but at what cost? Let me put it that way. Like, would you be willing to lose potentially somebody else, like not re-signing Edmunds?
No,
in order to keep Poyer.
I'm keeping Edmunds over Poyer. It's harder to find a linebacker than it is to find a safety.
I think Casey's talked me into that view over the past few shows.
Dude, I'm betting on age and
I like Edmunds. I really do.
Age, natural talent.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to see him go. No.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if you go back to those couple of games when Edmunds was out, our pass defense was completely different. And maybe you guys can remember, but I'm pretty sure Poyer was playing in at least one of those two, if not both. But our pass defense is like night and day when Edmunds is in or out.
Yeah, the middle is wide open because he doesn't have 30 feet of wingspan to take care of it.
Exactly.
But
and I do feel like this season Edmunds is coming, like when he goes in for a tackle, he's bringing it. This season seems like more than he has in the past.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I've been wondering this, so we keep Poyer, we lose Edmunds. How much would it piss you guys off and we remain the same amount as good as Poyer is? You know, he that retains for the next 3 years, but then he retires. But say Tremaine Edmunds does take that next level to be Roquan Smith, but it's for another team. How much would that piss you off knowing that, okay, now he's 27, he's still got at least another 5 years of this high playing ability left, and we missed out on it because we choose to take an older player who was better, maybe better at the time, to try to chase the ring now instead of keeping the window open longer, to me.
Yeah.
Now, why do we jump straight to Edmunds? Is there another person that I don't know, we're paying a decent amount or might be paying
not really.
that we're not using as much? Or
the only reason why I go to Edmunds is because he is basically a free agent right now. There are other guys on the team that we could. Yeah, there are other guys on the team that we could potentially restructure and keep both. I do also want to make it a point to call this out because I've seen lots of these three. Which do you want? And it's usually Oliver, Edmunds, and Poyer. Which two do you keep? Well, Oliver still has one more year on his contract.
Yeah.
So that's kind of irrelevant. Now, I believe his cap number this year is $10 million. Yeah. So could they restructure his deal? Maybe give him an extension to save some money. Maybe. Does the team want to do that? I don't know. Like, Oliver is definitely not played into his top 10 status. So he definitely does not deserve that kind of money, in my opinion. And I've even seen some theories that maybe the team just trades him altogether. I don't like that idea because I think Oliver can be a force with the right people around him on the defensive line. Like I was saying earlier, if Von Miller's out there and Jones and Phillips are out there, Oliver becomes a force then because he's not the focus of an offensive line.
To me, that would depend on what we would receive back. Late first round, early second round pick. Hell yeah, I'm taking that.
I'd do that for a first rounder, yeah.
Absolutely. Give me pick number 27, Fred Oliver. I'll take that all day long.
Yeah.
I love the pictures and the videos of him on his horse down the streets of Buffalo and all that. That's pretty cool. He has definitely adhered himself to the Buffalo community and everything. But he's just not living up to where he's supposed to have been. And at this point in his career, I feel like he should be I'm not going to say an Aaron Donald, but still a top 10 pick at a defensive tackle position needs to be able to wreck a line more than he is.
to quote the kids, he's not acting his wage.
Is that what the kids are saying?
Apparently.
I mean, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So there's also Tre'Davious White. He could do a restructure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, technically,
Milano,
anybody
Dawkins,
could do a restructure.
but the main ones: Josh Allen, Milano, Dawkins, and White.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'd say, yeah, Edmunds definitely over Poyer on the offseason wish list.
If we had to pick one or the other, yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
What were we going to say, Casey?
Good starting point.
My wish list is another wide receiver. And that does not mean stop using Gabe Davis. That means I just want we need talent in this wide receiver room. We need talent better than Jake Kumro. And I know we all love John Brown, but John Brown isn't, he's not going to spell Davis as much as he needs. I loved having Emmanuel Sanders in there and kind of splitting the time 50-50 with Gabe Davis. It seemed like Gabe played a lot better. He seemed a lot more confident playing like that and playing only like half or 65% of the snaps. He obviously had more yards this year, but not nearly as many more catches as you would expect for the amount of more snaps that he played. I mean, he had a lot more targets, but the actual catches was still low. I think he had, 40 some odd catches this year, and his previous 2 years he had a total of 35 and like 500 yards both years. So his average was monstrous, but that's not necessarily what we need right now. We need somebody that can just find the open spot in the zone in the middle, not on the outside where Diggs can do it and then Davis takes over the top. We need somebody that can find the open spot like Beasley was able to do for those couple of years, and for Josh to be able to pick apart the zone defenses that he's facing now, because teams aren't running the man. We see what happens when they run man against him. Davis and Diggs do beat the guys deep, but when they play zone, I mean, they just struggle to find open spots in the middle of the zone. And that's where Josh Allen has to start playing hero ball and get everybody on the move and break down a play.
And I think some of that, too, is, again, kind of going to the offensive line. If you're running a zone defense, I feel like with Davis or Diggs or whoever the slot receiver is, they can find those holes, but they just don't have time. And a lot of times, Allen's go-to when he has to get rid of the ball is downfield. Just, I'm going to launch it down here. Maybe we make a catch. Maybe we get a PI, whatever the case is. But
a PI, yeah, right.
If you throw a pick, it's like a punt.
The Bills have the least amount of PIs in the NFL since Josh Allen started being their quarterback, by like a significant amount, like a very significant amount. It's weird. I don't know, but I saw it in the middle of the year.
The NFL is rigged, right?
Yeah. According to Arian Foster, like you said.
God.
But I saw some stat in the middle of the year that like the Bills have, and just throwing numbers out here, like 10 calls compared to like the next closest that was 30. Something wild like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So here's kind of my wish list, and I guess this is geared more towards, this can be free agency, it can be draft, I don't care. Just fix it. The offensive line. I do feel I can have faith and confidence in this receiving core as it is if your top three is Diggs, Davis, and Shakir, or even if Beasley comes back. I'd have to get into McKenzie's. I think he's a free agent. McKenzie.
Keep talking. I'll figure it out.
Is it?
Okay. Obviously, Beasley was signed to kind of a one-year thing, so we don't know if he's going to come back or not. So I think a lot of the wide receiver room kind of depends on who comes back. I don't want to see this team spend more, whether it's draft capital or free agent dollars, on wide receivers when Allen just does not have time. You look at the current offensive lines and even from the conference championship games last week, four of the best lines in the game. Eagles are the number one rated offensive line in football. The Chiefs and Bengals, both in the last year and 2 years, after the Bengals Super Bowl run when they got destroyed by Tampa and Mahomes was running all over the field, they went out and spent some money and basically rebuilt the entire offensive line. Bengals, same thing. They got wrecked by Aaron Donald in that pass rush that did include Von Miller. With the Rams in the Super Bowl, what did they do in the offseason? They went out and rebuilt their offensive line. That is what's happening with Buffalo. We cannot protect Allen, and they need to rebuild this offensive line. Dawkins is fine. I don't know if you guys saw the PFF ratings or not, but Dawkins was given over 70, which is pretty good. I believe it was sixth amongst left tackles in the league. But then the other four guys, two of them over 60. The other two are in the 50s. That's being Spencer Brown and Roger Saffold, both in the
Roger 50s. Saffold was 43.8.
Yeah. Terrible. Like, say what you want about PFF grades. I know there's a lot of people that don't buy into and all that, but that's all we really have to go off of, right? So I do put some substance on PFF grades. Like, there's somebody in a dark room somewhere watching some film like, you're not very good. Let me give you this score.
It shows to me there's something you should be doing that you're not.
Yeah. So I'm not ready to throw in the towel on Spencer Brown yet. I do think the injury at the beginning of the season kind of slowed his development this year a little bit. I do feel like he was getting better as the season was going on. I've heard some people say move him down into the guard, but I don't like that idea because he's so freaking tall. Even for Josh Allen, he might be bouncing balls off the back of his head.
He does that to Mitch Morris now.
Yeah. So, and I do like Mitch Morris, but even his PFF grade was only like 61 or something like that.
So Morris, it's funny you say you want to keep Dawkins. Dawkins would be my number 2 on the list. Morris is the main one who I'd refuse, unless he obviously retires, and then in my opinion, that's when you draft a center. You can get where the Bills draft that you can usually get the number 1 center on the board, and they've paid off the last couple of years. I love Mitch Morris. I mean, he's one of the top 5 centers in the game, in my opinion. I mean, the Bills paid him to make him the highest paid center in the league for a reason. Deion Dawkins, I mean, he's great for the locker room. I love him. Can you upgrade off Dawkins? Yeah, but you'll be spending a pretty penny. Is it worth it? I don't know. I can't answer that question because what would you do with Dawkins? You're not moving him over to the right guard to the right tackle spot. So
yeah,
everybody else, I'd be fine just letting him walk. I mean, Ryan Bates isn't going anywhere because they signed him to that contract last year. Speaking of contract, McKenzie, it was a 2-year extension that he signed last year, so he's still under contract for 1 more year.
So that wide receiver room then pretty much is still intact with the exception of Beasley. He's the only unknown.
That kind of bothers me.
No, I mean, we're
dragging out our situation another year of the same team that needs a change.
Yes, I agree. I mean,
But how much of a change do they really need, though? I mean, think about it. We were still, even with kind of a at best average offensive line, we were still the second best offense in football statistically. Second or third scoring.
To the eye, it wasn't that good though, and everybody knows that. Everybody who watched, except for the first 2 games, to the eye, it was like the offense is missing.
I was watching game by game. It was a pretty ugly season.
It seemed like the entire year it was just slowly going downhill.
There were up and downs. Like, we closed out the season scoring over 30 points like 6 weeks straight. But and to your point, it's still an NFL team. You put up 30 plus. I don't care who you're playing against.
Hey man.
But here's the thing: the points were there, the yards were there. My point is this: fix that offensive line. How much better can this offense be with the skill position players that we have? Think about what they've accomplished with what they have this year, and then just fix the offensive line. Don't dump a bunch of money in the wide receiver room. We don't need to dump a bunch of money in the running back room. Dawson Knox is perfectly fine. Obviously, Josh Allen is perfectly fine. Fix that line. My God, how good could this offense be then?
I'm not saying to dump a bunch of money into the receiver room. I'm saying go out and get somebody like the Emmanuel Sanders, who was like right on the brink, like of just about to end his career, but he still has something left in the tank. You know what I'm saying? Or go out and spend the second round draft pick and get a Christian Watson, somebody out there that has that high potential ceiling that just needs someone there to break it open. I'm not saying completely break it down, but I mean, I would like Diggs and Davis's backup to not be Jake Kumro. That's my point. I would like, because Shakir plays inside and outside, but he's not the same. I mean, Kumro has the size that Davis has. I would like somebody with Shakir's speed but Kumro's size, and somebody younger.
I would be fine doing that in free agency. I'd have no problem with that.
That's all I'm saying.
First or second round on it, because so when I ran that mock draft, there was Osiris Torrance was one of the two. There was another offensive lineman. I wish I can remember what the name was, but if one of those two guys was there, Buffalo needs to grab them. And here's one reason being. Offensive linemen can come in as rookies, and oftentimes they can be successful. You look at Linderbaum from Pittsburgh. They drafted him. He came in. He played well. Trying to think. There was
or something happens to somebody. We have a quality player to put in there.
Look at Creed Humphrey. He went to Kansas City. He's been an All-Pro 2 years in a row.
Yeah. So that's my point is these guys can come in year one and compete and play at a high level. Wide receivers – typically doesn't happen. You got Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson.
Dude, look at last year's draft. All the first round wide receivers panned out so far. Anyway, I mean, outside of
they've played well, but
Jahan Dotson, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. I would die if the Bills had one of those three as their third wide receiver.
And it would do no good because Allen has no time to get the ball to him.
I would beg to differ because they're better receivers and they know how to get open better than Isaiah McKenzie.
So you're saying Diggs doesn't know how to get open, or Davis, or
over the middle?
Beasley.
There is something else.
Beasley knows how.
Not anymore. He knows how, but he can't get there because he's too goddamn slow and old.
No, I will die on this hill. Fix the line.
Isaiah's got the speed. I agree. Fix the line. I just want one more wide receiver. I want one more true talent in the wide receiver room.
You're not going to get a Garrett Wilson in free agency.
That's why I said spend the draft pick, dummy.
But then you have no offensive line.
Spend in free agency and draft the young talent. It's cheaper.
Yeah, it's young offensive line talent.
It's cheaper to spend it on a.
I'm with Ronnie with the line.
What's cheaper, to pay a offensive lineman or to pay a wide receiver?
Offensive line is cheaper.
That's what I'm saying. So revamp the offensive line.
What's that got to matter?
With the little amount of cap space that we have, and use the draft picks that we have on players that we won't have to pay for another 5 years.
We don't have the cap space to go get a wide receiver though. That's going to impact.
If we were,
oh my God, are you listening to me?
If we're looking for a skill position, I would say let's look for a stud of a running back. Because that would also help.
We have one in James Cook. We have one in James Cook.
Is he really a stud?
Look. You fix the offensive line. Fix the line.
I'm not going to say that because I agree with you on the line, but that's just another thing I want to add in there.
We need to spend
the line needs
the little money that we're going to have. We need to spend on players on the offensive line because it's cheaper. So that little amount of money will go longer, and then draft the younger receivers. So that way we don't have to pay them for 5 years. Kick the can down the goddamn road, Bron.
Jeez.
Yeah, fix the offensive line.
That's what we're agreeing.
Right. I don't know why you're squealing like a girl.
Because nobody listens to me.
Everyone listens to you.
Well, I'm listening. I just think you're wrong.
We want to do the same thing, but we want to do it backwards.
I don't mind. I do not mind bringing in another wide receiver from free agency. Okay, I don't mind that at all. I want my first couple of picks in the draft to be offensive linemen.
You got a better
at least two of the first three.
Two of the first three, I would be fine with like drafting offensive linemen, but I want that third to be a wide receiver.
The third needs to be a safety.
I thought we were talking top priority though. Would we all agree it's
the offensive line is
offensive line is
top priority.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I just want one more true talent in the wide receiver room.
It would be nice.
Okay, do me a favor.
Someone better than Kumaro.
Do me a favor. Pull it up. Free agent wide receivers 2023. Let's see who's on that list.
It's not impressive. It is.
Well,
I think Juju is the number one. I can tell you that.
Rather try to draft one rather than pick up a free agent, right?
Yes, because it's cheaper, and if
it's not.
You're saying don't draft a wide receiver at all, right?
No, I'm saying to. Oh yeah, no, not at all. Saying not to.
No, I'm not saying not at all. I just don't want my high draft picks to be wide receivers because we have more pressing needs elsewhere.
Right.
Like I put that up there. So the other day, I wrote
we could take a receiver third,
Buffalo Lowdown.
Third pick, or
no,
not even. No.
Well, it depends. Okay, here's where it depends on, and this is what I wrote.
Well, who's that
for Buffalo Lowdown? My top 3 areas: defensive line, offensive line, safety. Offensive line being my number one. I went safety because there's so many question marks right now.
Yeah.
With Poyer, with Hamlin, Jaquan Johnson didn't play well. Hyde, we know he's coming back, so hopefully everything's good to go with him. And then you've got, oh my gosh, the names I'm drawing blanks on, but career backups at the safety position.
Yeah. Are you guys ready?
Poyer
for
doesn't.
This
is it that bad? Because
bad.
You look.
It's
bad. Don't even read it.
Okay, here we go.
I wouldn't be. Juju's fine. I would take Juju.
Nelson Aguilar, Sterling Shepard, DJ Chark, Randall Cobb, Marvin Jones, Julio Jones, Byron Pringle, Alan Lazard, who I have a newfound hate for, Jacoby Myers, Deontay Hardy, Juju, AJ Green, Jarvis Landry, Matthew Slater, Cam Sims, N'Keal Harry, Olamide Zacchaeus, Ashton Doolin, Mac Hollins, Jamison Crowder, Sammy Watkins, Andre Roberts.
Oh, yeah, we still got Crowder too.
Zach.
We don't need no receivers.
He's a free agent. He's on this list. How do we?
I know, but he's already said he wants to come back.
Well, people in hell want ice water. Marquise Goodwin, Rashad Perryman, Mecole Hardman. Hardman is somebody who I'd be very interested in.
Why?
Speed. We don't have any.
What did he do with that speed? What has he done with that speed?
Amen. He could play that's all he would have to do in Buffalo. That's the thing.
Like when you're the number 2 receiver with Patrick Mahomes and opposite Mike Hill, and you can't do any better than he's ever done, I don't want Hardman.
I wouldn't mind it because he'd be cheap. And then there's guys like Paris Campbell. Noah Brown is somebody who I'd be interested in as well.
I don't think we're at any point to cheap out on anything right now, unless it's filling that position with a draft pick.
I mean, it's all. I'm going through this list. I mean, T.Y. Hilton.
There's a few. There's a few names you mentioned in there though that I do
like Juju, like
Darius Slayton. That's somebody who I'd be very interested in.
Slayton, Chark. Marvin Jones Jr., even though he's getting later in his career. Juju, I wouldn't mind. Juju would be like a really nice complement to what we currently have because Juju is a big dude.
He would.
That's the one aspect that we don't really have is that big physical. And I know Davis is that, but Davis is he's tall, but he's not really thick. Juju's a big guy. No, that's going to be too expensive.
His calculated market value is 14.6 average. In 4 years, 58.67 million.
Right. So kind of to my point, any of those receivers on that list that are going to make an impact, we can't afford.
Which is why we need to draft one and pay
but it's not a big need.
You think our receiving core is fine?
I do, yeah.
Oh my God. We're going to fight, Pop Ryan. I'm glad we're not in the same room.
So you don't like our wide receiver core? You don't like our wide receiver room?
I do.
Say we don't like it. Could use a little help.
I like the core of it. I would like it to be.
I see both sides, but it's definitely not our top priority.
With what the top 4 that we currently have, Isaiah McKenzie, Shakir, Brown and Davis and Diggs, I think there need to be help. We've seen the inconsistency from Gabe Davis. You know, I mean, it is starting to get worrisome now.
But that
Isaiah
he's not
Isaiah-
solid too.
Isaiah
Right.
McKenzie. I mean, Mr. Inconsistent, and we can account 3 or 4 interceptions for Josh Allen this year. I counted Isaiah McKenzie because they went through his freaking hands, or he just like threw on the pitch plate, like he just bobbled the ball and threw it straight up in the air. And I mean, and then Shakir. I mean, I'd love to see Shakir. I mean, I would love for Shakir to step up and be that person, then not have to worry about anything at all. I mean, that's my hope.
So a little backstory.
Gabe
for
needs some
myself
competition
here.
for that too, right?
Yes, that's my whole thing. Is I think Gabe needs competition for number 2.
Here's kind of my backstory, and this is why I believe in offensive line more so than anything. As you guys know, obviously I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I watched those Bills teams with Kent Hull, Howard Ballard, Will Warford. That offensive line was one of the best in the league. You look at what Emmitt Smith did behind one of the best offensive lines in the league in Dallas. You look at the 4 teams from last week's conference championship. All 4 of those offensive lines were some of the best in the league. If you have an offensive line that can protect and open up holes, you and I can run through those holes and get yards. Okay.
Look at the wide receivers those teams had.
What?
That played last week.
I feel like you don't have a lot of faith.
You're saying you want to spend like your first 2 or 3 picks all on linemen?
I have faith
Say that
in
again?
Diggs, Davis, and Shakir.
You're saying you want to spend like our top 3 picks all on linemen?
No, just
Seems
2.
kind of crazy, but
2
definitely
of the
2 of
first
them.
3. Yeah.
In case we don't nail it.
And that's not crazy when you consider the fact that the last couple of seasons, this team has drafted defensive linemen generally in the first 2 or 3 rounds. The year that we took Rousseau, our first 2 picks were defensive linemen.
Yep, because they went BPA.
So, and then we grab, Spencer Brown later in the draft. We've grabbed Tommy Doyle later in the draft. We keep getting offensive linemen later in the draft. Can we flip it this time? Can we fix the offensive line and fill, particularly the interior, like the 2 guard positions? I like Ryan Bates. I think he
needs to go back to left guard. I think he just needs to go back to his natural position and play left guard. We saw how much better he was at left guard last year than he was, I guess, 2 years ago now, compared to this past season. I mean, look at Devin Singletary. I mean, he ran wild the last 4 weeks of that 2021 season. I mean, just absolutely insane. Took off. Everybody's like, look, we have a freaking franchise running back, and here we are again. Like, oh, we need a running back.
Yeah, and I think Bills Mafia is probably going to be rooting for a running back until we get like a Christian McCaffrey type, and we just don't need that.
I haven't really seen that on the socials that they're clamoring like they had the last few years for him.
Oh no, there's still people clamoring for it. I think there's more for the wide receiver because people, no offense, but they're enamored with skill position players. Like, we need a Jamar Chase. Oh, we need the next Justin Jefferson. I am confident in our wide receiver room to get the job done with what we have. I'm sure they'll probably bring some wide receivers in. They usually do, right? But if we had to go into next season with what we have, I am fine with that and confident that we can win and win a championship with that group if they can fix the offensive line. If our line can protect and give Allen more than 2 seconds, I do believe that he will dissect any defense with any group of wide receivers. I don't want to say any group, but you get the point. The offensive line is like, it's the engine of an offense. Like if they can't protect, if they can't open up holes, unless you're Barry Sanders, I don't care. You're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm saying,
like snapping the ball, they're in your pocket. Well, you're not doing nothing with the ball then.
You want to draft Osiris Torrance like in the first round? Please be my guest and do that. Like that would make me so happy. But at the same time, in the second round, if Hyatt is there out of Tennessee and he's just sitting there like, I would much rather have him over, I'm sorry, but Isaiah McKenzie or Jake Kumaro or Jamison Crowder. I mean, just the talent. I mean, he's a damn good wide receiver. I mean, do you disagree? I mean, would you rather have those guys over him?
Rather have what guys?
Like
Our
Crowder
current
and McKenzie and Kumro over like
it depends on what
Jalen Hyatt.
it depends on what's available at that time in that position. Because I do agree with you draft best available as opposed to focusing on team needs to a point. So if we get into the second round and he is by far and away the best available talent, then yeah, grab him.
Oh,
But
if he's going to be
if there's a
available
50-50 between him and an offensive lineman, I'm going offensive lineman.
Yeah, see that I think that's just where we differ. Like I'm not saying because we're not going to get any of the first round wide receivers, so like I'm not even worried about them. It's like Jalen Hyatt is the one who I'm looking at in the second round, and because if he's actually going to be there when we pick, then he fell to us, and he's going to be the best player on the board. But I think that's just where you and I differ is where if it was the 50-50, I would take the wide receiver because we did already have that offensive lineman in the first round. But you would take the second offensive lineman, which I'd get. I'd understand. Like in my draft process, I'm like basically through 2 rounds. I haven't gotten to the third round yet, so I haven't figured out who's really going to should be around there for wide receiver wise and offensive line wise. I mean, I've seen Jarrett Patterson in mock drafts going to the third round, and that would thrill me to get him in the third.
And that could completely change based on free agency too.
Yeah,
the free agency happens in March, like around the 15th or so. So if the Bills go out and because of what, like with Casey and what Cincinnati did in the last couple of years, they went in and answered their offensive line in the free agency. If we do that, then by all means, I'm all for grabbing the best wide receiver you can get or a safety, depending on what happens with Poyer and Hamlin, because we still don't know if Hamlin's going to play again. So it sounds like he will, but
I think me personally, this whole conversation with Poyer coming back. So like just focusing between these wide receiver, these two groups. Just for
between the offensive line wide receiver, assuming
Yeah,
just assuming an issue.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So at that point, I screw offensive line. Give me Antoine Johnson, and give me the best safety in the draft
in
the first round. Yeah, and then
what
do you do about the line
first?
It's still
and then give me the line the next 3 rounds. I'd be fine with it.
Here's a name for you guys to think about.
If you say Christian Benford, I'm gonna punch you in the head.
No, I mean there's that possibility. We don't know.
It's not a violent show, Casey. Really light things on fire and jump through tape.
Since you mentioned Benford, he did play some safety in the preseason and OTAs and stuff like that. So that is a possibility. Who knows? But no, this is for the incoming draft and the rookies. JL Skinner. He has a second round grade. Most of the draft people that I've seen have him in the second round. He is a safety. I'm familiar with him because he's a Boise State kid. If he's available in the second round and we've got an offensive lineman in the first, I'm all for that. Take Skinner because he reminds me of Hamlin actually. I think he might be a little bit taller than Hamlin, but he is not afraid to get down in the box and lay people out. Like he's a very aggressive tackler. He's not afraid to hit, and he can move around. He's got some speed. That would be very intriguing for me if he's available in the second round when we pick. I don't know if he'll make it that far down, unless we trade up or whatever. Who knows how that all plays out? And if we can get those two, and then I don't know, maybe in the third round, we come down to the best available again. Is this wide receiver this much better than this offensive lineman or whatever? All this draft talk could change though based on free agency, and I don't know what offensive linemen are going to be available. I haven't dug that far into free agency yet.
Let me tell you, there's a lot of really good ones.
If they enter the offensive line in free agency, by all means, take a wide receiver.
I think they're going to. Let me go ahead and look this up real quick. But
while you're doing that, my only concern would be again the salary cap, because right now we're a little over $20 million over the cap. Now I know Brandon Beane is gonna, he's gonna flip numbers, crunch them, and do a whole, whatever the magic that he does, and free up some room. And I thought it was kind of funny. He said last week during the press conference, don't expect another Von Miller type signing. But he kind of
That's
said
what he
that
said.
before Von Miller last
He
year. And
says
then
it every
Von
year.
Miller happened. Yeah.
We need
Are you ready
another-
for that?
We need another
This is going to
spot
make
like
you
that.
a lot happier than the wide receiver list. There's
Okay,
guys
let's hear
like
it.
Orlando Brown, Rodney Hudson, George Fant, Connor McGovern, Jason Kelsey, Justin Pugh, Roger Saffold,
Kelsey's not going to go anywhere.
Matt Pryor, Isaac Seomalu, Cameron Irving, Mike McGlinchey, Wes Schweitzer, Austin Blythe, Brandon Parker, Nick Gates, Feliciano, Garrett Bradbury, Andre Dillard, Dan Feeney, Trey Turner, Riley Reef, Jesse Davis, Eric Fisher, Isaiah Wynn, Chris Hubbard, Bradley Bozeman. I mean,
Okay.
yeah,
I like
like
I like the top 5 more than the rest of them there.
they're all freaking starters, man.
Yeah,
like
true.
half the offense, like half the NFL's offensive line is a free agent this year.
Yeah.
That's I think.
Like I say, if Buffalo
think
fixes
that's
the
my
line through
reasoning.
free agency, then let's do it. Let's take a wide receiver round 1 and Skinner in round 2, and I'll be a happy you know what.
That's how I would build a team, because it's going to be cheaper to sign offensive linemen. We're going to be very thin with cap space this year, so I feel like signing offensive linemen in free agency is going to go stretch further than it would be just if we sign a wide receiver or a skill position in free agency and then draft the lineman. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But what else?
I mean, you can even look at like right now? Here's another example. If you look at KC, what they did, they let Hill go. Like, all right, bye, and they brought in, a couple of above average receivers. They fixed that offensive line, and Mahomes had statistically his best season ever.
They filled Hill's position
without any true number ones on the receiving room. That's my point. Is it can be done if you have a good offensive line to protect. Because I don't care who your corner is. I don't care if you're Deion Sanders or Drew Rivas. You're not going to cover a receiver for more than 4 or 5 seconds. And if the line can protect, guys will get open.
That's also having like the best play caller ever as your head coach. To me, a lot of this is like huge. Like this season, to me, it was huge for Andy Reid's legacy. Like, I mean, he had.
I think it was more for Mahomes' legacy than.
I agree. I think it was both huge for both, absolutely huge. But I think like Andy Reid was like, all right, I have Mahomes and Kelsey. Like, watch me work this entire AFC with just a tight end, and then a bunch of number 2s and 3s.
Yeah, I think that's somewhat overrated in my opinion. And I've said this before: players got to execute the play that's called. You beat your guy, you win. Like,
yeah, but you got to put your players.
I would like to see more creativity in our offensive play calling. I would like to see we're up by 17. Let's run the ball a bit more. Yes, I would like to see all of those things, but at the same time, if Davis is supposed to run a post and he runs it and he doesn't get any separation, that's not on the coaches. They're not the ones running the route for him.
No kidding. But you have to be able to put those players in those positions. I mean, that's what makes Eric Bieniemy.
In what position? You get on the field, you run a post. I mean, it doesn't get any more simple.
Yeah,
than that.
you're breaking it down. You're breaking it down into layman's terms. Yeah, but
at the end of the day, that's what football's about. You beat the guy across from you.
Yeah, but what if it's zone? Now you have all 11 guys across from you. You don't have to just beat this one. You have to figure out where all 11 are and find that zone.
Which you can do.
Or if you're being doubled, you can't just run a post.
Leave it to your coach to be like, okay, they're running zone, so let's run this play because now we know that these guys can do this.
Obviously, there are plays that you can call that are more zone beaters versus man beaters and vice versa. At the end of the day, though, whether it's man or zone, receivers are going to get open if the quarterback has enough time. Whether that's a dump off to Knox or Cook or whatever, or if Beasley. Let me ask you guys about Beasley. Do you want him back? Do you guys hope he comes back? Do you think he has enough left to be a quality slot?
Quality, no. Backup, sure.
Yeah.
I'd be fine with losing McKenzie.
He's good.
And having
He's
him
good
just
for
be
depth.
McKenzie's spot.
He's good for depth, but I could do with or without him.
Yeah.
I don't think he's it.
Yeah. I would love to have him back solely to mentor Shakir.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. Even if he's not active on game day, like you just said,
All right,
let him just be there as the coach.
I'd like to see Shakir with a
We're already at an hour.
I know.
Wow, look at that. That's what happens when we argue.
Stop fighting, guys.
Yeah, that's okay. So we did have one segment we wanted to kind of get into, which is one quick question. Do you guys want to do this or maybe save it for next week? Because we have a bonus show this week that we could use that.
Well, I say we save it for Kristen.
All right.
I think she'll like this question.
So we're not going to spoil the question right now. If you guys want to hear it, tune in on Friday to hear that. We're, like I said, a bonus episode Friday evening, 7:30 Eastern time.
Kind of leading into it, but not. We're not going to get quite that far.
We were getting there. We were getting there.
Yeah. So that'll be 7:30 Eastern time on Friday. Next week, my son has a basketball game Wednesday, so we're going to have the show on Tuesday, 7:30 Eastern, and we will have a guest then. If I don't get all my names mixed up, but that will be Aaron Quinn from the Cover One folks. He'll be coming on. We're going to be watching and talk. Well, we're going to watch so we have the East-West Shrine game tomorrow, the college, and then we'll have the Senior Bowl on Saturday. We're going to watch those. We're going to check out the prospects. We'll talk about those on Tuesday with Aaron. And then 2 weeks from now, we have Sarah from, I think it's Bill's Girl. I can't remember the Twitter name. But she is actually in Mobile right now. It's Mobile, Alabama, by the way. That's where the Senior Bowl is. She's actually there watching the practice and watching the game. So she's checking it out all live. So I'm really excited to talk to her about that and what she saw in that experience. And then after that, we're going to get into another guest who we'll talk about later, but we're going to get into a little bit of fantasy football with him because that's kind of his forte. So a lot going on this week or this month, I guess. And we'll have some more guests lined up for the rest of the summer. We did decide, what were the dates? The last week of June and first week of July. We're going to take some time off, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Lauren and I are going to be going to Florida June 30th through July 9th. So I think you said, the last week of June and the first week of July, we're going to take our mid-year hiatus.
Yeah, because we're going to Tennessee for a family reunion the last week of June. We'll be back right at the end of June, I think the 29th, I believe. So unless Mike wants to run the show by himself.
No, I got to find something to do now.
Yeah, right?
I'm going to tag along one of you guys.
Come on down.
All right. So for Mike and Casey, again, I'm Papa Ron, and we are out of here. Everybody have a great week, and we'll see you on Friday. Go Bills.
See you later.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.